When I moved to New York, I had $700 and I was sleeping on the floor because I couldn't afford a mattress. Like, this was truly a dollar and a dream situation. And so you're telling me that I'm going to lose my livelihood and have to go back to essentially nothing if I don't conform to your standard of beauty. Hello and welcome. You are now tuned into the Ebb and Flow podcast. I'm your host, LA-based actor, model, and poet, Ebonee Davis. Being here is just more remarkable to me than just starting a podcast and being able to get people together. It's truly the physical manifestation of so much work that I've done on the interior. So my arrival in this space is my reflection of my arrival in this spiritual space that I'm in, this mental space that I'm in, this emotional space that I'm in, and this is merely a reflection of that. Here, I plan to discuss a lot about authenticity, and so I just want to start with my journey and discussing why I want to do this in the first place. I'm 29 years old. I currently reside in Los Angeles, California. I'm originally from Seattle, Washington. I come from a background where both of my parents were substance abusers. They were both addicted to drugs when I was born. I didn't have a lot of the advantages in life that a lot of people do have. And so for me, there has just been a lot of programming associated with growing up and not having resources, you know, and what the implications of that are. I moved to New York when I was 19 years old to pursue my modeling dream. I've had this dream of modeling since I was a little girl watching America's Next Top Model, and I just thought and knew in my heart that one day I would be on the show. And when I turned 18 years old, they came to Seattle to do an open call casting at this mall in Puyallup, which is like 40 minutes outside of Seattle. It was playing on the radio, and my mom was like, "You have to go to this casting." And I was like, "Mom, I'm a little bit older now, and I don't know if I want to do this anymore. Like, I don't know if this is my dream anymore." By that point, I had gotten signed at a local agency in Seattle, and I just felt like America's Next Top Model was a little bit like beneath me, I guess, at that point. You know, it's reality TV, it's drama. You know, people who go on that show don't necessarily get the respect in the industry because they really kind of characterize the participants on the show. And I was kind of like, I don't know if I want to go through that. Like, I want to be taken seriously. Like, I really want to do this for real. But I ended up going on the show after graduating high school in 2011. I spent the first what would have been my first 2 quarters of college filming the show. And then I attended UW for like the last quarter of my freshman year. And then I completely dropped out of school. And at 19 years old, I moved to New York because I really wanted to do the modeling thing on the highest level possible. And I knew that it was going to be challenging. I knew that it was going to be hard for me because I did my research before I got out there, and I knew that it wasn't some romantic, fantastic idea. I saw that on these agencies' boards, they would only have 1 or 2 black girls. I knew that that's the reality that I was up against, but I had this dream in my heart and I wanted to chase it. But when I got to New York, it was no after no after no. And I went from door to door to door, and I heard no from over 20 agencies. And on top of that, it was like, what's going on with your hair? What kind of, you know, people digging all up in my tracks and trying to figure out what was going on, telling me that they already had girls who looked like me, telling me that, you know, it was either light skin with curly hair or dark skinned, you know, very like stereotypically African looking girls. And there just wasn't a lot of room for that in between. And so I ended up getting signed to an agency eventually. And by that point, my self-esteem was pretty low. And I was kind of willing to just do anything to actualize this dream and get my foot in the door. And what they told me is that they would push for me when one of their other black girls wasn't available. So this is sort of the programming that I was coming into the industry with. So you can imagine as a young 19-year-old girl being told over and over, no, you're not good enough. We already have a girl. And then when you do get signed, it's like, we'll push for you. You know, you'll be the backup girl. There's already this complex that you have of like, well, now I'm sort of willing to compromise and do anything to just make my dream happen. And I think that's the case for so many young girls, especially Black girls, when it comes to seeking opportunity in this world, it's like we don't even have the option of being in integrity with ourselves because the forces of oppression are so strong that we're already forced out of alignment with who we are before we even get the chance to become anything. And so I began working, and for a long time, a lot of my success in my career just was dependent on me going out, making connections, talking to photographers, setting up test shoots for myself. I just, I was just willing to do the work because I had this dream. But then in 2015, like the end of 2015, the beginning of 2016, I started to see this natural hair community forming on Instagram, which I thought was really cool because I had never seen my hair type represented in that way, on that scale. I'd never come across products that were made specifically for my hair type. It was completely foreign to me. And after years of having my face painted gray by makeup artists and having my hair burnt out by hairdressers who lacked the knowledge and tools to be able to manage my hair, it made me feel very bad about myself. I just decided that I wanted to reclaim a bit of my autonomy. I wanted to reclaim a bit of my sovereignty. And I decided that the first step in doing that I would take would be to wear my hair natural. In 2016, I decided to wear my hair natural, and I did not feel like a Nubian princess. I did not feel confident. I did not feel good about myself. Because again, the programming, there was a reason why I wasn't wearing my hair natural for all those years. It's because subconsciously, I believed that I wasn't good enough. I believed that I wasn't beautiful enough. I believed that I wouldn't be accepted into certain spaces. I never saw myself represented. I never saw my natural hair reflected. And so it was impossible for me to even fathom that that was an option for me. But I remember making the decision to wear my hair natural, regardless of all of that, because I had been pushed so far in the direction of just feeling broken, just feeling so devastated by the reality of not having people to care for me on set. And I remember walking into my agency and them telling me, like, that rolled out of bed hair just isn't going to work. You got to do something. You got to tame it because you're going to lose the clients that you have. You're not going to be able to get any new clients. And you're talking to a girl who is coming from a background of mom on food stamps. Like, I'm coming from a background of, like, essentially impoverishment. Like, I don't have anything to go back home to. When I moved to New York, I had $700 and I was sleeping on the floor because I couldn't afford a mattress. Like, this was truly a dollar in a dream situation. And so you're telling me that I'm going to lose my livelihood and have to go back to essentially nothing if I don't conform to your standard of beauty. And these are the stakes that we're facing as Black women. So something that might seem as trivial as hair is actually truly like life or death. But I stuck with it because I felt like this was my truth. This is what I have to do to reclaim this part of myself that's been stripped away for years and years and years. And after that, within 3 weeks of that conversation that I had with my agent, I ended up booking the biggest campaign of my career up until that point, which was the Calvin Klein campaign that ended up in Soho, shot by Tyrone Liban. It was a beautiful campaign, and I was standing there with my natural hair and my afro and my chin up, and I just looked so proud. And I just remember feeling so just validated in my decision when I saw that campaign, especially after being told that I had made the wrong choice. It was like, God was like, no, you made the right choice. Keep going. If for 24 years at that point, you believe that you weren't beautiful enough with natural hair, then what other beliefs and programming are you holding on to that's preventing you from ascending to the next level of your being and getting this next level of blessings that's available to you? And that's really when my journey began. That's really when I started unpacking and unlearning and asking questions. What do I believe about myself that's holding me back? what programming is inside of me that's holding me back, not just from society and the lack of representation, but from my parents, from my friends, from my community, from the trauma that I've endured, from the trauma that's been endured for generations before me, that's been passed down to me. What is inside of my cellular memory that I haven't been able to address? What gifts haven't I been able to unlock? And that's what this journey has been about for me so far. And I remember that Calvin Klein campaign dropping on the same day that I found out Philando Castile had been murdered by police. And this was in like a week of Alton Sterling also being murdered by police. And I just remember that summer being particularly violent and full of police brutality. And I wrote this open letter to the fashion industry called A Time for Change. And I basically called the fashion industry to take action and realize that as creators of media, we have a responsibility to humanize the systematically dehumanized. And I've taken that responsibility upon myself a lot since then. And I've realized that I don't need a seat at the table from the industry. I don't need anything from the industry. I don't need a handout. I don't need a magazine cover. I don't need a campaign. I don't need a billboard, because God has endowed me with the gifts that I need to make sure that my voice is heard and make sure that this message comes through, this message of liberation, this message of escaping oppression and ascending into the next level of who we're truly meant to be by remembering where we came from and remembering who we truly were authentically behind all of this programming. And so since then, since making the decision to go natural, I went through this healing process. I went through this unlearning process, and I realized, all of the traumas and things that I experienced in my lifetime were compounded together and made me form habits and behaviors, and it made me get into certain relationships with certain people who disrespected me, and it made me be in friendships with certain people where I lacked boundaries. And so often, me being an empath, I would play the victim. I would get into these situations where I would want to help people and I would want to do so much for people, but I was like hemorrhaging my own energy trying to do that, not realizing that in itself is a form of narcissism, being this empathetic person and pointing the finger at everybody else and placing the blame on everybody else without realizing the ways that you are lacking boundaries and not doing for yourself, and trying to heal everybody around you without addressing your own need for healing. And I think that's when the tables truly started to turn for me, because this word accountability really came into play. And that's when the serious healing started. That's when I was like, oh, I have to be disciplined with how I express myself, who I hang around, the type of people that I allow into my space if I really want to ascend into this next level of being. And I want everybody in the community to understand how important this accountability thing is and this discipline thing is in our ascension. That's truly what it means to love ourselves, is to hold ourselves accountable and realize that each and every moment we're making choices. And a lot of times those choices are coming from a place of, outside influence, family, community, society, government, school, education, all of these things that we're constantly being inundated with. But how often are our choices coming from our connection to spirit and who we truly know ourselves to be? And we don't know ourselves, and that's the real problem. And so that's the reason for the podcast. That's the reason for the platform. And I went through all of that prior to the pandemic, and that was between 2016 and 2020 that I went through that sort of first level of transformation. And I thought I had it, I thought I had it down packed. I thought I was ascended. I thought, I've made it. I got my afro. I am the person that God created me to be. And then we got into the pandemic, and it was like, it started all over again. It started all over again. And it wasn't even in the pandemic that it started over, because in the pandemic, that was like a hub for personal creation for me. I was writing poetry. I had rediscovered this thing that made me so happy as a youth, and that was like an outlet for me as a youth, and I was able to bring it forth again because I wasn't on this hamster wheel constantly moving around place to place, you know, doing the modeling thing. It's like I really got to sit with myself and tap into this whole other layer of authenticity and what it truly means, like this return to my childhood self-expression and what it truly means to be Ebonee outside of not just the programming, but the context of capitalism, which the modeling industry still is very much a part of that. I really got to sit with myself and figure out, not even figure out, but just experience my essence. Like bring forth my true essence, be in that stillness that allowed me to create from an authentic place without any external timelines or anybody pulling at my energy. And then when the world opened up again, that's when I got depressed. You know, that's when the depression really, really hit me hard, and I was like losing it. And I felt so abandoned by God because I had reached this very high up place in my frequency and my personal expression, this very authentic place. And then all of a sudden the world is back open and I'm back on the hamster wheel. My energy is getting pulled in 50 different directions. And I no longer have time to create, and I no longer have time for self-expression. And yet I feel like the version of myself who I was pre-quarantine has died. And so I can't go back to who I was. I can't go back to the version of myself that was just so focused on modeling, and yet this new version of myself who I'm becoming hasn't been born yet. And I'm stuck in this limbo, and I'm stuck in this depression because I don't know which way to go. And I felt like all of my success up until that point didn't matter. And what I'm now realizing is there was another version of myself waiting to be born, an even more authentic version of myself, even beyond the programming of my own life, even beyond the experiences of my own life. It's like I had even more ancestral knowledge that needed to come forth. I had even more ancestral memory that needed to come forth. And I realized that even modeling within itself, this dream that I had for so long, wasn't even necessarily who I was or what I wanted. It was another form of exploitation. It was me carrying on the patterning of slavery, where our bodies were commodified and the number one source of our value. It was me still holding on to that energetic patterning and carrying it out, realizing that modeling was simply a program that I was running, or wanting to be a model was just a manifestation of this energetic imprint, really led me to this next dimension of my becoming. And I've realized through my own journey of coming into alignment with my most authentic selves that it happens in layers. You know, it's really like the peeling back of an onion. And I peeled back one layer and I thought I was there. And then I was like, oh, there's another layer to peel back. And I think it's going to be so interesting when people sort of go through my catalog of photographs, especially because my journey has been so well documented with me being a model. They're going to see me with straight hair, and they're going to see me with my natural hair, and they're going to see me cut my hair off and then grow my hair out. And then after quarantine, I cut my hair off again for this, I guess, for this next rebirth. And now I really feel like I am in my goddesshood, you know, and what that looks like. You know, they're going to see all of these iterations of me just becoming more and more and more myself. And I think it's going to be interesting too, because it kind of goes from like present day back to like the 70s kind of look, where I had my fro and I had my Angela Davis thing going on, all the way back to like this ancient soul where, you know, it's like I'm coming with this 3,000-year-old wisdom and knowledge of self, and I'm bringing that to present day, and I'm using that as a tool to heal the people around me. I think it's reflected in the way that I look. I hope that it's reflected in the way that I carry myself. But it really just comes from a deep devotion to God, a deep devotion to love, a deep devotion to truth, a deep devotion to knowing myself and seeking that out at all costs, even when it makes me different from other people, even when it sets me apart. Because truly, as humans, we all want acceptance. We all want community. But at what cost? If it comes at the cost of sacrificing who we truly are, is it worth it? And I think we have to be comfortable with isolation, because my journey required a lot of that. I think we have to become quite comfortable with walking away from certain friend groups, because certain friend groups are only there because they facilitate your bad habits. They provide comfort to your trauma. They allow you to behave in lower vibrational ways that aren't in alignment with what you want to become. You know, they don't elevate you. They don't challenge you. They don't uplift you. You have to be comfortable with leaving certain relationships and leaving certain relationship dynamics and evaluating the ways that you're showing up in relationships. For me, it was always a matter of having my energy siphoned, but then victimizing myself and thinking I was doing something so good because I would go out of my way to help people who would just take and take and take. But what was I doing for myself? What was I doing to help myself? How was I showing myself love? It's not love if I'm constantly just giving of myself and saving nothing for me. That's another form of narcissism. And so I had to realize the ways that I was showing up and participating in these unhealthy dynamics. And I've realized that through knowing how to love myself, I've learned how to love other people in a way that's healthy for me, respectful of my boundaries, and also benefits them too, because it's no benefit to other people for you to drain yourself and to give and give and give. That doesn't truly help people. What helps other people is for you to stand in your power, in your integrity, and allow the light and the vibration and the frequency of that to help them. Especially as Black women, we've got into the habit of putting everybody else first. And I think that comes from being from underserved communities, being in survival mode where we've had to put everybody first. I remember being a kid and being called selfish in moments where I would choose myself or want things for myself that didn't necessarily benefit us as a whole. And I think we have to step outside of that programming as well and realize that it's not selfish to put yourself first. It truly does benefit everybody else around you. And so that's another just aspect of healing that I want to bring forth with this podcast. And I truly feel like now that I've stepped into this other layer of authenticity beyond natural hair, beyond who I am in the modeling industry, I've realized that I'm in my intellectual era. I'm in my Angelo era. I'm claiming it, all things literary, all things words, all things books and poetry, all things speeches. That's where I am right now. And I feel like this is where we are truly meant to be as a people. We've always been intellectual. We've always had superior wisdom and superior knowledge and alphabets and numerical systems and all of these contributions that we've made to the world. And yet we've forgotten about it. And we've been inundated by this programming that has left us at a lower status in life. And so we depend so much on who we are as physical beings to obtain status, to obtain wealth, to obtain recognition, without realizing that we are inherently great. We are inherently brilliant. We are inherently genius. And so this is, a return to who we are authentically isn't just about who we are physically, but who we are as intellectual beings. And that's very much what my journey is right now. I've been modeling for 10 years. I moved to New York in 2012. It's 2022. And this is really a full circle moment for me. The Ebb and Flow podcast is a full circle moment for me. This is me stepping into my new era of being, and yet who I was as an ancient being at the same time. It's bringing not just full circle everything that I've experienced in my lifetime, but everything that my ancestors have experienced and everything that's been experienced in lifetimes before me that have all culminated to this one point. so that I can sit here and use my voice and use my mind and use my wisdom and inspire other people and be a vessel, not just a physical vessel, but a vessel of love, a vessel of knowledge, the knowledge that we need to heal into the next dimension of our beings. So now that this dream has come to fruition, I really feel capable of doing anything. You know, it's been years in the making. It's taken a while, and I think it's just a testament to dedication, a testament to perseverance, and a testament to divine timing. I wouldn't have wanted this to happen under any other circumstances with any other crew. I wouldn't have wanted this to happen any sooner, because I've just stepped into this new level of self-awareness, and I'm so excited to share this with the world and to get these messages out to the world and to be the most purified vessel and instrument to communicate this wisdom and share these messages that I want to share. And so I think, you know, I'm trusting myself more than ever, and I'm trusting God and having faith more than ever, because I understand just how perfectly orchestrated life is when you're in that ebb and flow, when you're in that surrender, hence the name for the podcast. For me, this has just been a process of dying to my flesh, you know, surrendering every day, waking up every day, asking God to use me, asking God how I can be the best vessel, how I can be the most purified vessel. And when you sit and listen, those messages come through, and it'll be like, you need to stop hanging out with that person. You need to end that relationship. You need to start doing this every single day. You need to start eating this way. But when you start doing those things, you realize how supported you are. And then things just start showing up that align for you and make things so simple. And you realize that you don't have to do any of this on your own. We're all connected to this umbilical cord, and unfortunately for so many of us, this umbilical cord has been severed, and we don't realize how supported we are. Like, we're all infants in the womb eternally, and we're supported by Mother Nature. We're supported by Mother Earth. We have this strong system around us that wants to give us everything that we want for ourselves, but unfortunately, we just have become so disconnected from who we truly are, what our identity truly is. And so we feel like we have to do everything on our own. We feel so isolated. But when you start to surrender and die to your flesh, you get back into that alignment, and that's when the flow starts to happen. And you're like, oh, I can sit back. I'm going to be obedient for sure, and I'm going to do what I'm told to do, because that's a key factor in it. But I'm supported, and all of my dreams are going to come true. I just got to be obedient and allow God to do God's work. And I'm going to do my job as a child of God. And so I always think of this like analogy of, like, you know, when you're a kid and you like stand on your parents' feet while they're dancing and they hold your hand. Like, that's my relationship with God, where like I'm on God's feet. God is taking the lead. I'm holding God's hands, but I'm dancing and I'm having fun, but I'm completely surrendered. I'm not in control. But with that, I get to be so free, and I get to be so liberated. And like, the liberation comes from surrendering to God and allowing God to take control and provide for you everything that you want in life. So that's the meaning behind ebb and flow. I truly just aim to embody that principle and embody that philosophy. And I want to also inspire other people to realize, like, the timing, your time will come. It's never delayed. It's right on time. You know, it might take years. You might have something in your mind for years, but it's really about coming into alignment with yourself first and foremost, because for a long time, I realized that I was running around using all my energy trying to make things happen for myself. And when I just stopped and I really poured into me and made sure that I was taken care of, things started to come together that I wouldn't have been able to orchestrate for myself. I was in a pattern of burnout, you know, due to capitalism and capitalism programming. You know, I was stuck in a pattern of burnout. I was stuck in a pattern of exhaustion. I wasn't taking care of myself. I wasn't eating right. I wasn't, you know, exercising. I wasn't doing what I know I need to do for my mental health. But when I started to put my mental health first and stopped chasing after things just started coming to me. I just want people to realize that it isn't about going and getting. as much as it's really about being receptive and receiving and knowing that you're worthy and doing the work to come into alignment with your most authentic self. Because from that place of alignment, from that frequency, you're able to match the frequency of the things that you desire, and they will be magnetized to you. It's not just a bunch of hocus pocus. Trust me, it's scientific, okay? Einstein used to talk about it too. We talking about deep quantum mechanics here, baby. We made it, y'all. We made it. I'm here. I don't want to say that I can't believe it, because my belief is the very reason for it. My faith is the very reason for it. And I'm just so grateful to be at this point, to be at this pivot, to be able to take my life in an entirely new direction. God allowed me to be a certain version of myself, to create this platform that I've created for myself. And I'm so grateful for that version of myself. I thank her, and I give her so much love for her service. I'm just, I'm blown away by her resilience. I'm blown away by her fortitude. And I'm grateful for all that she's done in establishing the platform and building the foundation for who I am today. And if I were to go back and say anything to my younger self, it would be, thank you. And stay strong. And all of those tears are worth it. All of those tears, God didn't forget about any of them. God was collecting them. And now that rain is about to rain over your life. That abundance is about to rain over your life. I'm getting emotional. Oh my God. Man, that abundance is about to rain over your life in a way that you could never imagine. Don't give up. Stay strong. You're beautiful. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. And even when you believe otherwise, even when you doubt yourself, know that God doesn't forget about that. God is going to use everything. Every trial, every tribulation, God is going to use everything. Every setback, God is going to use everything. When you look at nature, nothing in nature goes to waste. Nothing in nature goes to waste. It's how our ecosystem works. Everything is supported by something else. There's a full circle moment everywhere, and God is going to bring everything full circle. The naysayers, all of it. It's all necessary. All of those lessons led you to this place where you're able to speak with so much wisdom and be so sure of yourself, be so centered in who you are, to know yourself on such a deep level that you have the opportunity to inspire others and empower everybody else around you. So keep going. I know I'm a mess right now, but it's okay. It's real. Thank you all so much for tuning in to the very first episode of the Ebb and Flow podcast. And I can't wait to see you for episode 2 and many, many more to come. I love you all so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for tuning in. And God bless you all.